I really want to tell the story of where you came from because it's so obviously intriguing to me as a fan of yours. You were born in New York, of all places, and
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of folks may not know this. Bronxville, like literally inner city, right?
Well, it's actually it sounds like it's the Bronx, but it's actually in Westchester County. It's not in the Bronx.
Oh, okay.
So Bronxville is um it's kind of like okay, most people have seen Mad Men,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's the suburbs of New York. It's where my father was a writer and a TV producer, and he worked when I was little. He worked at CBS Reports, and a lot of the fathers, the men who were at the time, worked in the city, lived in these bedroom communities. So if you saw Mad Men, it was that kind of a suburb where I
Okay.
grew up.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the story is that your parents got divorced, and that ended up having you as a kid moving out west to Colorado. And
Right.
looking at your story as a whole and looking back at it, I feel like that move obviously probably shaped your life more than any other singular event that happened to you, right?
It was, I mean, it's hard to know, but it seems like it was seismic to
Yeah.
me because I did grow up New York is kind of a bubble.
Hmm.
It's the old New Yorker cartoon. There's New York and then there's the rest of the country kind of thing. And I think I would have obviously been drawn to music, but if I hadn't left New York, what kind of music would Colorado opened up, country rock and hippies, and I moved to Boulder with my mom, and I mean the music scene and the scene in general could not have been more different from where I was born, and so I think, yeah, I think musically it shaped me, and also there was a big live music scene. I mean, it was kind of rivaling Austin, really.
Wow.
Um, so that opened up this idea that wow, I could I could have a band. I could go out and play in clubs. I could, and my mom was my great enabler, and she took me when I was way, way underage. I'm talking like, 13, 12 years old,
Yeah.
out to see live bands. And so that planted that seed in my mind. So yeah, I think moving to Boulder and moving to Colorado was a seismic change for me.
So, what was kind of your introduction to music as a kid? Who or what got you involved?
I had an older, I'm the youngest of four. So I had a one older sister. My next oldest sister in particular was about 5 years older than me. And she was bringing home Bob Dylan records. And, of course, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were everywhere. And she just kind of putting it in my ears, And I went to a camp when I was 7 years old where one of the things you could do was learn to play guitar. And this was all at the same time. And the music, I loved the Beatles. I loved rock, but I couldn't imagine making that music because
Yeah,
it's big.
right.
When she brought home a Bob Dylan album, then I started to think, well, that's just a guitar and a singer,
Yeah,
I can do that. So at, 7, 8 years old, I started teaching myself Bob Dylan songs and Peter, Paul and Mary songs and Janice Ian and the New York folk scene,
yeah.
basically. And that opened my mind to the idea that not only could you make that kind of music, but you could write songs
Yeah.
as well. Like people wrote their own songs. So folk music really was my entree. And growing up in New York, I wasn't even aware of country music. I don't
Yeah.
think it was years before I was really aware of it.
Yeah, see, I'm from Massachusetts, hence the Boston Chris, and so it's very similar to that. We had one country station, and thank God my dad, that's all he listened to was that country station because
Yeah.
it really, my love for traditional country is born from that. I love how it's Bob Dylan, of all people, that allows you to see yourself um, in almost ability, right? Like I feel like every songwriter or artist's story has that paramount person that allows them to see themselves in their shoes. And I find it interesting that it's Bob Dylan for you. It's
Well,
not, you know?
he was the first. He wasn't the only, but he was definitely the
Sure.
first. Just because the simplicity of the way those early Dylan records were, they were just guitar and voice,
Yeah.
and it was really that simple for me. Because to me, like the Beatles, those records seemed like they just came down from Moses on a tablet. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yep.
They're not accessible in terms of I can do this with
Right.
my little, you know, nylon string guitar. But Dylan, that was accessible. That was something I felt like I could do that somehow.
Do you think because it was Dylan and folks like Janis Ian and Peter Paul and Mary, folks like that, that really salt of the earth kind of music, is that what kind of inspired you to write as well?
Well, I think the thing that I had even at like, 7 years old, which I have to laugh when I think about 7-year-old me sitting there strumming the guitar singing like Masters of War or something, like probably not even really understanding.
Right.
But I think that the common thread there and the thing that hooked me was even at 7 or 8 years old, I was completely captivated by a couple things: emotional, the emotion in music,
Hmm.
and the simplicity. Those the two primary things. I loved the simplicity of folk music, the fact that it's three chords and it's delivery system for a story, really.
Yeah.
And I love stories. I think I was sort of maybe kind of born a storyteller. And this, whereas rock music, lyrically and in every other way, again, going back to the Beatles, that's not linear storytelling so
No.
much.
Right.
But the songs that I was hearing, the folk songs of the time, were telling stories, and I think that's what really hooked me and made me want to do that. I'm essentially a storyteller at heart.
Before you picked up a guitar and started playing and being influenced by these artists and writers and stuff like that, what does creation look like for you at that time before music is introduced to you?
I was doing everything. I was painting. I had an aunt who was an artist, so I emulated her. I was painting. I was dancing, singing. I mean, everything. It was really diffuse, but more about the expression
Wow.
than it was about any particular medium.
Yeah.
And even after I started playing the guitar, I still did all those other things, and I was always a writer. I think that was the bedrock for me. I was writing poetry and short stories. I wrote my third grade play. I was just a writing machine, even then.
You said your dad's a writer? Is that partly where that comes from? Is it hand me down, or is it just organic to you?
Well, I think we were very different kinds of writers. My dad was a journalist.
Right.
He wrote nonfiction. But the one thing I did get growing up as the daughter of a writer was, and this is not a small thing, was the notion that a person can be a writer.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Make
think
make a living at it, right? Like this can be a
I
career.
really think a lot of kids either get told or they get the idea that that's just not something you can do,
Hmm.
And I never had that idea because he was supporting a family of four, um, by writing. So I never had the sense that I couldn't do that. But beyond that, um, we were very different in terms. He was really a journalist.
Yeah.
That was really, and there are elements of journalism in storytelling, but then there's the whole other side of it,
Right.
which is imagination.
Yeah, and you only get 3 minutes, right? If you want to be commercial, especially,
Yeah,
you
that's,
get three
that,
minutes.
and 5 if you're me.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the characters have more to say, right?
Yeah,
Man, I often wonder on this show how many artists, how many songwriters we've missed out on because they didn't have that realization that it could be a living, it could be something financially worthwhile for them, or conversely, their parents are hardworking blue collar kind of folk, and perhaps they don't get that kind of support of you can do this, kind of a get a real job kind of thing that we hear. So I often wonder how much music, a great music, we've missed out on because somebody went to work instead of picking up the guitar.
absolutely. No,
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. And I feel so lucky that I had parents that, you know, never put any limitations on us as
yeah,
far as what we could do.
yeah. Thank goodness for that, man.